I can't even believe we even got to get to this, man. Last week it was Shador's the worst quarterback of all time. This week we got to go over whether winning games is more important than draft picks. I thought I would never have to get to this, but I guess we'll have to go ahead and talk about it because we are so far out of touch with the way the football is played and the way the football is actually successfully done by winning organizations and people who kind of know a little bit about the game. We'll come back and we'll talk about it all on this episode of The Ultimate Browns. Welcome on into the fastest 30 minutes in all of sports. It's your boy G. Bush right here with the Ultimate Browns. We got a great show planned for you as always. Browns in a top spot to take a wide receiver. We'll talk to you about what one NFL analyst and insider draft analyst says who had the Cleveland Browns has taken in the first round with their top pick. We'll talk about that. Maybe it's a receiver, maybe it's a playmaker. We'll get to that. Offensive line conversation is getting draining. It's becoming nastier and nastier. And every week, I'm just finding out that people that want to talk about trenches or know anything about the trenches, it's becoming a dying art, and people just have no clue about offensive line. We'll talk to you about why it's the most important position in all of sports, and no one really gives a you-know-what about it. So we'll talk about that as well. But first, we got to get to this. And I'm sad we had to even get to this point. But, I mean, I'm sitting here talking about, Browns fans having a conversation about whether winning games versus draft picks are even important. Like, how is that even a serious conversation? We'll talk about that coming up. But before we get to any of that, this episode is sponsored by the Cleveland Monsters. With the best entertainment in the land, great promotions, and affordable tickets, Cleveland Monsters hockey is a perfect outing for any family. With reoccurring games like 1-2-3 Fridays, Monster Family Days, Blue Jackets games, and giveaway nights, there's something for everyone at Rocket Arena when the goal horn sounds. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman Night presented by GE Lighting with the Cleveland Monsters. Celebrate Superman on Tuesday, December 30th at 6:30 p.m. with the Monsters hockey as they take on Ice in the Clark Kent warm-ups and Superman-inspired game jerseys. And the first 2,500 kids, 14 and under, get a Superman cape. Tickets are now on sale, so fly on over to clevelandmonsters.com. Yeah, listen, this is a game where the Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I know a lot of people were a little bit upset here. But the reason they was upset, I'm confused. I contend that there's no real Browns fan out there that has ever talked about whether or not draft picks are more important than winning games. And, we talked about it on the show all week. And, whether it's on Twitter or whether it's on, Facebook or whatever chats or groups or whatever it is, man, it's gotten to a point where the actual winning on the football field or actually what goes on in the football field don't even be counting no more. It's more almost like the NFL has become what's going on outside of it. The NFL is about the storylines. The NFL is about the narratives or whatever you want to draw up. But now it's become like let's talk about all of the things except for what happens on the football field. And when I watch this football game, it's kind of disheartening because I look at what goes into playing football games. And whether people want to believe it or not, man, these games matter to people. I get it. I think there's a disconnect between the fan base and because these guys make so much money. And the first thing that people say is, oh, my gosh, people have real jobs out here. Why are we talking about poor football players? We're not talking about it like that, bro. We're not talking about poor football players. We understand that they make a lot of money, but let's understand that they put their bodies through a lot of different things. There's some people who play football that never received a penny. Some people didn't make it to the highest level and got injured. Some people play at high school levels and have injuries. The sport of football is a tough sport to play. And anytime that you can come out here and you can win a game against your rival against a Pittsburgh Steelers team that's trying to fight for the playoffs. And we're talking about draft order and pecking order. Is, to me, it becomes one of these things that become like exhausting. It's like we're arguing back and forth every single day about the things that don't even matter, the minutia, the things that are going on in our own heads, inside our own worlds, inside the own narratives that we push. And when we actually watch the games and you get an opportunity to sit down and you get an opportunity to watch the actual game, not the jerseys, not the popcorn, not the commercials, not all the other stuff that comes with it. When you actually get to sit down and watch the football game and actually get to see your team win, it's wild to me that people would even consider it a thing where we're saying we should have got draft status. It's crazy. You're asking you're asking grown men who have families and adults and people, and we talk about Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff. You don't think these people want to come out here and win? You think, people ain't spending, all these hours behind the scenes putting these game plans together to come out here and win? And the crazy thing is, we done boiled it down to a point where we're at a point where we're so far gone in our market. We're so far gone where we ain't seen a winner in a whole 2 or 3 generations. When you don't see winning for that long, you start making up fairy tales. When you don't see a winner that long, you start making up in your mind that your opinions is you just think that your opinion is just the end all be all, because you're in the absence of any sort of any sort of stuff that can see, concrete evidence that's in front of your face. When you don't win for that long, people believe you can throw anything in the stratosphere and it sticks. I mean, some of the stuff that we arguing about is crazy. Do you think that there's grown men who may never get another contract? You think they care about Mendoza or more? Do you think that them dudes in the locker room really literally care about whether or not we are starved to keep having quarterbacks? And take Shedeur Sanders out of it. Like, I think this conversation has moved so far where people is stuck in the sand with it's Shedeur Sanders versus the people that don't like Shedeur Sanders fan base. And listen, I'm going to just be honest with y'all, man. Don't nobody care anything about that. That is not what it's about. It ain't. And so when I sit there and I'm like disinterested in having that conversation, is because I know for a fact that grown men that's fighting for their livelihood don't care nothing about none of that. You think that they care? They running around talking to their family and friends about whether or not they believe some guy from Indiana who hasn't even played no games in the college football playoff, or Dante Moore who needs to be fighting for his own livelihood today. Like, this is what we boiled it down to. We can't even get no good concrete conversations about what's happening because we've already made in our minds that we got some Cold War grudge against people who are anonymous people who support Shedeur Sanders. We've been talking about this for 17 whole weeks. 17. We done got to a point where we don't even know if Quinshon Judkins is good no more. Huh? Like, we arguing about whether Andrew Berry got some hits in the draft class or not. And the thing that I get to that is crazy to me, and I'm trying to figure out how this even came about, is this convoluted argument about why and where ranking do you arbitrarily give that Shedeur Sanders is going to be at. Do you think he's going to be a top 15 guy? Do you think Fernando Mendoza is a top 10 guy? We literally are sitting here like we are like 5 or 10 years old. We are adults and thinking individuals How are we sitting here trying to decide what number and pecking order is this guy going to be in 6 years? What? You do know that's impossible. You do know you don't, if you don't have the requisite information, the requisite time, the requisite, everything to me, and this is why it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It's not the people in the house. It's exhausting arguing with the folks. It's arguing with the people that you talk about this stuff with. Because there's no way you can tell whether or not somebody is going to be a top 15 quarterback by having 6 or 7 football games. There's no way to do it. So when you ask me, do you just think, and I tell you, I don't know. You want me to give you an answer? How do you want me to give you an answer on whether Mason Graham is going to be a superstar? He's played 1 year. He's a rookie. What is this microwavable football? I just don't really have the patience to do microwavable football, man. You can't microwave a football conversation with no nuance, and then people get mad because it don't really work that way. And it don't ring out that, and people like, what are you talking about, man? You know how I can judge Mason Graham? I can watch his film work, and I can judge what he does well and what he doesn't do well. I do that. I can tell you what he did well and what he didn't do well, right? The problem is now we're getting to a point where it's like, we just trying to be right. When did the whole conversation about the Cleveland Browns boil down to who's right or wrong? And what are we right or wrong about? We're evaluating young football players, we're evaluating rookies, and we're evaluating whether or not they're going to go into the draft and get some more guys to put with these other young guys to try to make some stepping stones and some building blocks to getting better. But we spend most of our time arguing about who's a mythical top 15 guy, as if you can gauge a guy, as if none of the other players or parts matter, as if nothing else counts but one person. That's not interesting sports talk. That's not riveting sports talk. It's not. It just isn't. So if you want me to give you, and you want me to jump on a roof and tell you, so you can say, oh, I got you. You said that Shedeur Sanders was going to be the greatest quarterback of all time next year. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying that. And I'm not going to do it just so we can have this mythical back and forth arguments about this stuff. Because it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. Like, you know, we are sitting here talking about drafts, right? But you notice, won't nobody mention none of them other dudes. We got a whole draft full of people. Nobody won't give you no draft name of no linemen. They won't give you no draft receivers. They won't give you no draft of linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks, none of that. They won't talk not 1 second about none of them other dudes. And then they won't even tell you really why they like the dudes that you're bringing up. At least give me something. At least let me know why you like them. Don't tell me if the Browns, you tell me why you like them, right? And we can have a conversation. But look, man, the talk about, you know, let's figure out what somebody is. It don't work that way, man. Guys go out there, they play hard, they get better. This is not, these are regular human beings. This isn't cattle, it's not video games. Somebody can come out and have a great offseason and then get hurt. Somebody like JOK can be on a trajectory and get hurt. Somebody like Patrick Mahomes can be a franchise walking Hall of Famer and then have a down year and get hurt. The problem is we understand all those things. And we gotta evaluate. Are we trying to win arguments? Or are we trying to talk about football? Because frankly, I ain't in it to, like, whether we believe it or not. I'm not in this to talk about who won the argument or not. I want to talk about football. That's what I want to do. I want to talk about football. If you got some football comments, let's get to them. But I'm not into this is not, I don't want to be on, this isn't my version of Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith, and no disrespect to the debate topics. Listen, man, sometimes it ain't about a debate. Sometimes it's about a nuanced conversation with some added conversation about what we doing, how we moving in the game of football. And that's what we need to get back to. Speaking of the game of football, when we get back, we'll talk about the offensive line and why that conversation is just, it's completely, the conversation about offensive line has sailed. And if you think offensive line play was a lost art in terms of the play on the field, talk about trying to talk about it in the media and what we do for a living. That's completely a lost art. We'll come back and do it right here on The Ultimate Browns. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is an all-in-one, remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automatic tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save me hours every week. And knowing you can reach a certified HR expert anytime gives you the real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back to the fastest 30-minute sports. It's G. Bush right here at the Ultimate Browns. Listen, man, Harbaugh said something. John Harbaugh said something that I really thought was important when it comes to the offensive line play. And I think sometimes when we continue to talk about offensive line play, there is a void in terms of how people understand it, how people entertain it, how people watch it, and how people digest what's going on up front. I think what we've done is we've boiled down the game to skill positions because the skill positions are the easiest to watch. I think most people never played offensive line in their life. I think most people don't watch offensive line. And to be honest with you, offensive line is not what sells tickets. It's not what people talk about. Offensive line is the group of people that is not on anybody's fantasy board. Even defensive players at least make some of the fantasy leagues. But offensive line is something that's a forgotten thing. And the only time you remember that an offensive lineman is bad is when they get a penalty or somebody gets a sack. But Harbaugh says something I thought was very interesting in this short little clip that I want to play. And it perfectly encompasses and articulates why most people never really consider offensive line play and why it is, to me, the most important position on the field.
Position group depends on no other position group to be good. But every other position group depends on them to be good. You know, what position group is that? Offensive line. They're not relying on any other position group to be good. They go out and they're good. But yet every other position group relies on the offensive line to be good.
Say that again. I want to say it. He said, and I'm going to play it again. He said, what position group on any part of the field does not need anybody else to go out there and play well except for themselves, right? But every other position counts on them to do their job in order for them to play well. That's stunning. Say it again. Run it back.
What position group depends on no other position group to be good, but every other position group depends on them to be good? What position group is that? Offensive line. They're not relying on any other position group to be good. They go out and they're good. But yet every other position group relies on the offensive line to be good.
When you take a look at this, and when he said that, it sparked something. When you got an offensive line, understand something. The offensive line affects every other group on the football field. Every other group. I'd even argue it even helps out the defense. Because if the offensive line can control the line of scrimmage, that means you can control the time of possession. If you can control the time of possession, you can keep your defense off the field and keep your offense moving the chains, more opportunities to move the football in the run game or the pass game, and control the clock. It's evident that the offensive line is most pivotal to the quarterback. The offensive line obviously is pivotal to the quarterback. If a quarterback has time to throw, if a quarterback is not being pressured, if a quarterback has the ability to step up in a nice, clean pocket, the statistics and the data all prove that quarterbacks are more successful. When you talk about it, why do you think people draft running backs? Very rarely running backs get taken in the first round in the top 15 picks, because the data and the numbers have shown over a long period of time that if you have a serviceable running back, he can get you 3 to 4 yards with a good offensive line. Doesn't even matter if he's elite. Now, trust me, you do take the elite guy if you can get him. But if you got the offensive line, he's going to affect the running game greatly. They don't need any of the rest of the stuff. The offensive line is up there. They're going to be calling out the protections. They're going to be calling out where we're going, right? They're going to be moving guys. The offensive guard, if he can win his individual matchup, he won his matchup. That is what it is. The tackle won his matchup. It is what it is. They are not dependent on the receiver. They're not dependent on the quarterback. It's the vice versa. People talk about, oh, well, a good quarterback makes everyone look better. That's not necessarily truthful. That's on the layman's eye. But a great offensive line will put you 9 times out of 10 right where you need to be. Take a look at the journeyman quarterbacks that be running around going to the Super Bowl. The Jimmy Garoppolo's, the Jared Goffs was in the Super Bowl. Come on now. The Brock Purdy was in the Super Bowl. You know why Brock Purdy is super successful? Because he got everything. He got everything you want to see. He got everything. Jalen Hurts. You know why Jalen Hurts is nice? Because he got everything. The year they went to the Super Bowl, 2 good receivers, the best running back in the league, elite offensive line, dominant defense. What are we talking about? What have we been watching for all these years? And I get that people boil it down to the quarterback, but tell me, if you ain't got a good offensive line and you can't got time to throw, that means your receivers can't get downfield. If your receivers can't get downfield, it's dink and dunk. If it's dink and dunk, guys are sitting on that stuff. If it's dink and dunk and they ain't worried about deep, the safeties is up. If the safeties is up, that means there's a guy in the box. If the guy's in the box, guess what? You ain't got nobody to block for him. So now the running game look what? And guess what? You take it, think about this. Think about this. There are one-trick ponies for everything. There are receivers that can do 1 or 2 good things well. None of them really block, so take that off the list. You got receivers that's a good route runner that run underneath routes. You got a possession guy. He ain't going to move you deep. He's not going to do nothing, but he's good on the intermediate routes, and he's a big body receiver. Then you got receivers that go deep. He ain't doing nothing underneath. He's a go guy. Think about how many receivers they got positions for those guys. Each it's a slot receiver. There's a number one receiver. There's a number two receiver. There's a possession receiver. Think about quarterbacks. Some quarterbacks mobile quarterbacks. They can move the pocket with their legs. Some people are statues back there. Some people are great with play action. Everybody has certain skill set. It's very rare that you get somebody who has all of those things. You get running backs that are third down backs. You got power goal line backs, specialty backs. You got backs that are bell cows that can do a little bit of everything. You got guys that can split out and is more like receivers, right? Tight ends who block, tight ends who run vertical, tight ends who can catch the ball and do a lot of things like receivers. Notice, those are all specialties. But if you're in the offensive line and you want to be a great offensive lineman, you have to know how to run block and pass block. You not only need to know all of those things, you need to have good power, but you also have to have good agility to be able to backpedal and backstep and do certain things. You got to be able to reach block. There's certain techniques. There's a difference between you getting a double team on a zone play or a gap block or you trying to reach somebody. You have to learn how to do all of those. You have to have enough speed and agility that you need to be able to climb to a middle linebacker that's moving from sideline to sideline like Roquan Smith or Carson Schlesinger. But you also have to have the power to root guys off the line of scrimmage. 3 techniques that's getting upfield. And you need to block Mox. It's the only position where you got to be everything. And you got to be smart. The offensive line is the smartest guys up front. The center usually is one of your smartest players. Look at Alex Mack. So my thought process is, guys, you're talking about not only they have to be great individually, but they also have to be great cohesively. They have to understand the gel and move off one another like ballet steps, play off one another. Think about the way the secondary has to communicate when they're passing things off in zones. Guess what? If you ain't good in zone, you could just run Jim Schwartz and just be man-to-man teams. Denzel, go out there and lock them down. You saw what he did against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why are you throwing over here? Corners don't even need to be in the huddle because they can be that good. A linebacker with great instincts can run around blocks. He ain't got to run through somebody. He just know where to play at. A defensive end like Myles Garrett don't need to be in a huddle. He's just better than you. He's wide. He's about to get upfield, and you can't block him. But for an offensive lineman, you have to be great individually, great assignment-wise, great technique, but also learn to work in concert. And there's 5 of them. There's 5. So you got to coach up 5 individual dudes. Why do you think offensive line coaches is a lost art? Because they got to know how to coach tackles. And the pass set for a tackle is different for a pass set with a guard. A center and the way he's snapping the ball in shotgun snaps is completely different. We think that they're all one monolith. Because why? We ain't never had our hand in the dirt, and we ain't never tried to. And we ain't even looking at it. So if you want to know why offensive line is important and why the Cleveland Browns need it, just go around and look when they had their most success. It's when the Cleveland Browns had Conklin and he was young, and Batonio was young, and Wyatt Teller was young, and they had a good running game. And they had people talk about Kevin Stefanski. Let's talk about what they had instead of talking about the quarterback. Baker Mayfield was the quarterback, but you had Nick Chubb. You had Kareem Hunt in your prime. Dearness Johnson can give you 100 yards. You had a top 5 offensive line. You had weapons at tight end. You had Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. And we acting like Fernando Mendoza is going to come in here and be that dude. And Dante Moore's going to be Himothy. I guess, man. Draft you some offensive line to get your mind together. That's what I would do. but that's just me. When we get back, we'll talk about some more. We'll get to what the Browns taking. They got a top 2 pick as of today. Some people talking about Carnell Tate. Could Carnell Tate be a wide receiver number 1? And is that the Browns' top choice at receiver? We'll talk about that coming back right here on the fastest 30 minutes on sports. It's the Ultimate Browns. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you follow the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere. Prize Picks operates including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using Prize Picks during both football and NBA tip-offs. It keeps me on track of every single game. You can even follow your favorite players like Shedeur Sanders or Donovan Mitchell, both on the NFL and the NBA side of things. If one of my players leave early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code word LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code word LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to the fastest 30 minutes in all of sports. It's your boy G. Bush with the Ultimate Browns. Now, look, the Browns, a lot of people was hot. A lot of people was upset because the Browns won, moving their draft pick down some spots. And Cats was a little hot right now. You take a look at this. It's courtesy of ESPN Cleveland. Look at the current 2026 NFL draft order. After the Browns win, they also have the Jaguars pick, but the Jaguars are going to make the playoffs, and that pick is in the 20s, so we're not even going to worry about that. So you take a look at it right now. The Giants, 2-13. Las Vegas Raiders, 2-13. Now, the Giants, I think, will stay. They don't need a quarterback, but I do think the Giants, as well as the Jets, need a quarterback. Arizona probably won't take a quarterback. Tennessee won't take a quarterback. And then you have the Cleveland Browns at 4-12 with the Washington Commanders at 4-12. They don't need a quarterback. Tyler Shook looks like he might be a guy that the New Orleans Saints will keep. And then you take a look at Kansas City, Mahomes, no quarterback. Take a look at Cincinnati, Burrow, no quarterback. Atlanta is not going to take a quarterback. Now, at 12, they might take one, but Tua's hit is crazy. So there's not a lot of teams that are in the position for a quarterback. So it looks like the Cleveland Browns may miss out on Mendoza or more if they do go in the top of the draft, because there's teams up there that do need a quarterback. So with that being said, there is some thoughts on who the Browns could possibly take. Ryan Wilson of CBS Sports projects the Cleveland Browns selecting wide receiver Carnell Tate with the number 6 overall pick in his latest mock draft. Now, Carnell Tate to me is smooth. He's fluent. He's 6'3". I'll be surprised, or I'll be interested to see what he runs. If he runs anywhere in the high 4.3s, I think he's one of the locks to be there. Now, Jordan Tyson is another guy. Jalen Tyson for the Cleveland Cavaliers, his brother. I like him. He's shifty. He can go get the ball. He's physical. Wide receiver out of Arizona State. I think these two guys are going to be jostling for the position all year. I think Carnell Tate as well as Jordan Tyson are going to be jostling for that spot. I'll go back and forth with Tyvis on it. I'll be doing a lot of film breakdowns on these two dudes. But I think both of them guys are going to be a wide receiver number ones in the league. And if you're the Cleveland Browns and you take a look at what's going on, it's to me, I'm going to be honest with you, it's a no-brainer, because as I do my breakdowns of what's going on with the linemen, I don't think there's an offensive tackle rated high enough that I would take inside the top 10. So therefore, if I do have a top 10 grade, and I do on Jordan Tyson as well as Carnell Tate, it's obvious that I would take a receiver there. You take a look at what the Cleveland Browns have, Harold Fannin Jr. coming back. You throw a guy like Carnell Tate in there. Jerry Jeudy is not a number 1 receiver, but he look a whole lot better as a number 2, don't he? You take a look at those guys, assuming that Quinshon Judkins can come back and be one of those guys as well. Now you're in prime position. If you are Shedeur Sanders, you got some weapons around you. You can also go in free agency and get you another guy that can move around a little bit. Isaiah Bond is showing you some stuff as a deep threat. And if you can then position yourself with that pick from the Jacksonville Jaguars, you can go get you something, a lineman, and get a guy where even if it's not a tackle, you might be able to take the best available position. Maybe you bring back Luke Whippler. I think Zach Zenner will probably be on this roster. If you like a guard or you like a tackle that you can move to guard and you like them better because Joe Batonio's not going to be here, by all the means, let's cook with that. You know, you can't really count on DeJuan Jones. We'll see what we get out of him. Tevin Jenkins is another dude where you might want to see if you could bring him back. But you're positioned to go get you another tackle. And by the way, I wouldn't trip if y'all went and got another lineman after that. You know, I'm looking to get best available. Let's get, you got 2 first-round picks. You got a second-round pick. Those 3 picks can be 2 guys that bolster your offensive line, or if you like the receivers, please, by all means, go back and get you another receiver. So I've been talking about receiver and tackle and receiver offensive line for the Cleveland Browns way before Shedeur Sanders got here. I was talking about it way before Deshaun Watson got here. I was still talking about them guys up front. And that is part of what I feel like the Cleveland Browns need to be doing. And if you look around, I'm just saying, man, go look at the players. All the former Thurman Thomas, like, hey, man, Shedeur ain't the problem. Go listen to what Greco said. Go listen to what Joe Thomas has said on this show, or on Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Guys, you know, Joe Hayden. I mean, like the players, if you take in consideration, even Ross Tucker, Leroy today, hey, Shedeur done showing some things. As we get closer and closer to the draft, I think people is going to come around a little bit, especially if Shedeur plays well this week, that the obvious choice is get me some weapons, get me some linemen, and let's see what we can do. Because all else fails, you can go back in the draft in 27, get a quarterback. But you need pieces and parts. And I think that's the best option for the Cleveland Browns. But you know what I always say, man. You know, it ain't up to me, man. It ain't up to me. It's up with what they think. And if you want the fresh take on what I say, I keep the Clippers with me at all times. And no matter how mad I get at people and do all this stuff, it's always, you know what it is. Go Browns. Have a good rest of your evening and have a great New Year. Peace.